Hello, and welcome to day 3 of Making the Mundane Magical. This is Rosie, or Rosanna, also known as Rosie Glow, and today's little question is, who is my higher self and how can I connect with them? Now, again, just to reiterate why I'm running this series, we banned words around soul, higher self, spirit, multi-dimensional being of love and light, co-creator reality, and we can use these words without really understanding what they mean. And I say that with a caveat because trying to understand things with our logical mind is always going to move us out of our hearts. And the reason this series has been created has been to sort of give enough information to the rational mind to relax, so that we can drop into our hearts, because in our heart center is where all the magic is. We started with the series asking the question how we can live magically and how we can make the mundane magical by shifting our perspective of what life is and how we can look for the magic and therefore find it. We then went on to discuss, I'm trying to remember now, what does it mean to be a co-creator of your reality? And I'm trying to break things down for you a little bit so you can understand more about where you have power to change things in your life. So today's discussion about who our higher self is and how we can connect with them is one where I just want to give some insight into what I've learnt my higher self is. And I call in my higher self every day because otherwise I am operating from my monkey mind, my conditioning, my ego. And there is nothing wrong with the ego. I've mentioned again in the previous videos that the ego has a lot of negative connotations attached to it. Oh, she's so egoic, or she's so in her ego, or my ego gets in the way, whatever it is we say. But really, the ego is there to help us to survive. It's there to try and make sense of what's happening now based on things that have happened in the past. But unfortunately, the ego is just working, it's an artificial intelligence, if you like. It doesn't have divine intelligence. And as a result of that, it kind of misunderstands and misperceives situations that are going on today, and will look to your bank of history and historical responses and reactions to see what's appropriate today. But unless you are engaging your higher self and your superconscious, you can really end up getting the wrong end of the stick and misunderstanding, and therefore by doing so you create another situation in your life, you co-create another situation in your life that you don't want, based on your expectations of what's going to happen, which are based on what has happened in the past. So the higher self is essentially infinite because there are infinite versions of us, and I will save that for another video over the next 2 days. But essentially your higher self is the part of you that can connect to divine mind and act as a communication channel between divine mind or divine consciousness and your human monkey mind or your human ego self. Okay, again, I'm really simplifying things because we want to cover also what it means to be a multi-dimensional being, and what actually that means in today's day and age, because we've talked about the world that we see as reality, that we perceive as reality, being the 3D matrix. And you know, the reason it's a matrix is because of the depth of the experience. It's an illusion that we get captivated in. But actually there's so much more. So as we move into 4th dimensional consciousness, we can actually move forward and backward in time. And well, I'm going to stop that one there until we look at multidimensional consciousness and what that means. But back to the higher self, what you're doing here is you're opening a channel to be able to communicate with your God self, and that will be explained more as well. But essentially it's in your heart. It is the you that is your superconscious, and it is the you that is you in the future, already having achieved what you want to achieve, already having experienced what you have experienced. So this is where the 4th dimension comes in. So I am the higher self in my consciousness to my 27-year-old self, my 4-year-old self, my 1-year-old self. I can go back in time to any event in my life and talk to that version of me from my perspective now. And if I was the me in that time looking up to me now, I would be the higher self. So when I call in my higher self, what I'm doing is I'm aligning with a timeline, and I'm going to talk today about your divine design timeline. But essentially, if I set an intention daily to live magically, and I set an intention daily to be a co-creator of my reality and to co-create with love, then when I connect with my higher self, or I call in my higher self, I am calling in the higher self who is choosing to live magically and is choosing to be a co-creator of her reality and to co-create with love. And she's the version of me that's got a lot of practice in it and is therefore coming to guide me and to help me and to inspire me in my now life and show me how it is that I can start to make little changes in my day-to-day life that will make a big difference and allow me to step fully into the experiences I want to have. Because life is not happening to us. Yes, we can talk about fate and free will and that certain things are fated and other things are very much down to our choices. But who's created that fatedness? Well, again, you could say it's your higher self. It is the other aspects of your soul, which we'll discuss, that have elected in your journey here on earth today to create experiences, to set up experiences in your life that would trigger the lessons that are necessary for you to learn, that you have chosen from a higher perspective, a higher consciousness than your current mindset, in order to be able to evolve your soul. And what are we evolving to? Well, we are evolving towards love and to union with Source once again. We become separate from Source in order to know ourselves as an individual spark of Source, before we also learn what it's like to create without the support of God, Source, higher mind, and what it is to create with that support and with that congruence. And eventually it's a game of life. This is why I'm creating it. It's like, okay, this is what it's like when I go it alone and I think it's just me and it's me against the world. And this is it, me, when I choose to trust life and work with it and see that everything that's happened in my life has been an opportunity for me to grow, to become a more loving, compassionate, whole human being. And that's part of us learning to become divine humans. So in my perspective, we are all ascended masters in training. So we're all learning to be divine humans through going through the lessons here on earth that are the challenging shadow lessons and the loving blissful lessons, so that we can see both sides. So, higher self. When we come to the discussion we had yesterday about Earth's ascension timeline, I mentioned that there is a version of Earth that has chosen to ascend, to co-create paradise on Earth again, and to restore this planet to peace, to balance and harmony. Now, we could have a whole philosophical discussion about what would happen then if this planet was suddenly vibrating to peace and there was no struggle and there was no challenge as there currently is. But that would move Earth into a different dimension, and Earth would have a different function than it currently has, including all the animals on the planet. We might not need to eat each other anymore. We might not need to kill each other. You just don't know. The idea is the function of having a physical experience changes as the planet's consciousness and vibration changes. So ascension-wise, Earth's ascension timeline is spinning faster and faster. So it's a much higher frequency version of our planet than the one we see. And I think it's helpful to imagine that in many respects, for us to understand duality, the world has split in two. And then there is the world that is choosing to continue to learn through destruction, through power, struggles through fear, through annihilation, through control. And essentially, well, let's just see what's going to happen with that world. But those who want to stay in victim consciousness, who don't feel there is any other option, that it's just too hard to be otherwise, and they're going to value more learning through struggle because actually it's in accordance with their soul's learning at this stage, stay in that paradigm. And these are the people you just can't get through to. They're not ready to hear anything different. And there's no judgment here. But from a point of view of someone who's awakening and who is seeking to awaken more, trying to awaken and in the process of awakening help others who are just not ready to awaken yet to awaken is a complete waste of your time. Try and hang around with people who are also opening their eyes. Seek opportunities to be around those who are opening their hearts, opening their eyes, and also those who've already further along the way than you are to support you to make the shift to Earth's ascension timeline, which is the other timeline. And this is the timeline where we are all consciously co-creating peace on Earth. We are all consciously co-creating a planet that is based on love and thriving, and those beings that come to have the experience here come to co-create with love and to learn what that means. Now, this is where your higher self comes in, because if I've talked before about optimal temporal reality, or I've talked before about your personal paradise, which is a term that Susanna Kennedy, my very dear teacher, taught me, or we talk about divine design timeline, then these are all relating to Earth's ascension timeline. So without wanting to spoil the future videos, we are infinite beings, and there are many different timelines that we can choose to live. So there are different versions of us. So when you set an intention to connect with your higher self from your divine design timeline, or your optimal temporal reality, which is your best now moment, or your personal paradise, what you're doing is you're kind of creating a shift in your being, and you're aligning now with the version of you that is the most aligned version of you with Earth's ascension timeline. So, you know, you could have your higher self from any timeline. And again, this can all get heady and create lots of discussions, which I'm open to having with you. But there comes a point when you shift beyond this sort of human understanding into higher frequencies, that trying to understand things with your logical human brain just doesn't work. You've got to access divine mind through your heart. And this is when we have those huge epiphanies. This is when we have enlightenment. This is when we have Kundalini awakening. This is anyone who's worked with medicines, plant medicines, and has had a panoramic view. That's kind of fourth dimensional reality, but it does give you a sense of what's beyond what we see in our day-to-day life. So I would answer in a short form that your higher self is your bridge into your divine nature, your divine self. And it allows you to be on this earth but not of it, and to start to bring down the consciousness from divine mind that allows you to live as a divine human, which is in alignment with love and with an awareness that you are a being well beyond your five senses, which is what we've been programmed to believe we are, just this human being with these five senses. We're so much more than that. So we're learning to use all 100% of our brain rather than that 20 to 30% that you learn about at school. And your higher self supports you to access all of the lessons you need to be able to incrementally increase your power and your consciousness as a conscious being walking this earth, a divine being, without blowing a gasket, without losing your mind, without, you know, completely losing the plot. And I think I'd like to give you a little exercise today. So, you know, I start every day with intention. My programs give you lots of different tools to work with this, and I've worked through different tools to get to where I am now. But I've obviously learnt to raise my frequency to a certain level where there's certain things I don't need to do anymore because my body has embodied them. Okay, so one of the first things that I talk about in my Fearless program is programming all 50 trillion cells of your being to vibrate with a certain frequency. And we could use the example of divine design. So let's just see if we could do that. So Bruce Lipton talks about the fact that there's at least 50 trillion cells in our human body. But I like to double that, because why limit ourselves to 50 trillion? Why not expand fully? So in this instance, I would say to myself, as I'm waking up in the morning, or as I'm going to sleep at night. So this is that twilight time when you're in between awake and in between sleep, where you're highly programmable. And you can just say to yourself, I command that all 100 trillion cells of my being vibrate in harmony with my divine design. So I command that all 100 trillion cells of my being vibrate in harmony with my divine design. You say it 3 times. I command that all 100 trillion cells of my being vibrate in harmony with my divine design. And you could take it further and say, with my higher self from my divine design. Okay? But keep it simple for now, because the next thing, after you've woken up, let's say, from programming your cells, so as you get up in the morning, or as you go to sleep at night and then wake up the next morning, then you can use the words that we've talked about over the last 2 days, and we can claim our higher self from our divine design timeline. So if you've already commanded that your physical being vibrates in harmony with your divine design timeline, which is the timeline that aligns you with Earth's ascension timeline, then you can use the statement, I am that I am, to invoke your higher self from your divine design timeline to embody your human consciousness. And the way that I would do it is very simply. I hope you'll write these things down. This is your micro actions for today are to try these things out. Is to, I think that's Roderick. Hello, lovely. Is to write down the statements that I have given you, so the 100 trillion cells one, and to start practicing morning and night. And then the second one that I would work with, and I'm keeping it really simple for you, is I am all that is. Say it 3 times. I am all that is. I am all that is. I am aligning with Earth's ascension timeline. I am commanding an alignment with my divine design timeline. I am commanding an alignment with my divine design timeline. And then the third one is I am invoking and embodying the wisdom of my higher self from my divine design timeline. So I am invoking and embodying the wisdom of my higher self from my divine design timeline. And then you just finish that with I am that as you breathe out. I am that. I am that. I am. And just for intent and purposes, you can imagine now that there's a connection between you and the sun, okay, and your heart, and a connection down through your feet into the earth. And as you make that connection with your higher self from your divine design timeline, and you're embodying their wisdom, you're downloading the activations. You're activating from the earth and also downloading from source. Whatever information you need to start to be able to see through the eyes of your higher self from your divine design timeline, and also to see through eyes of love and love what you see, which is what this is all about. This is looking through the eyes of your higher self. So I hope that that has answered and clarified some understanding of your higher self. I will go into more terms over the next 2 days. Please do ask me questions. I didn't have any comments from yesterday, so I'm hoping that was clear. But obviously, if you want to win a prize, then leave a comment. I look forward to hearing from you and look forward to completing the rest of this series. It's been a lot of fun for me as well. So I hope you find it useful and it's helping you to demystify the woo-woo and make it a little bit more practical, and supporting you also to make the mundane magical. Now, how often do you invoke your higher self? Whenever you get a chance to. Bring that consciousness in whenever you can. So every time you'd be bored now, waiting in a queue, waiting for the kettle to boil, in a traffic jam, that's the time to start to invite your higher self to communicate with you. Ask questions, drop into your heart, and see the answers that come. And let me know. Lots of love. Namaste. Let's all bring our higher selves from our divine design timelines in charge. Lots of love for now. Bye-bye.